Chapter 20, The Second Birth, from the novel Ashes into Light. The second birth, every ending carries within it the seed of a beginning. Raga's first school had been crushed, her reputation dragged through mud, her spirit scared, scattered everywhere. Yet, amid the ruins, something stirred. It was not just survival anymore, it was resolve. For weeks, she lived quietly, avoiding the sharp stares of neighbors and the mocking gossip of relatives. But one morning, as she prepared breakfast, Arjun placed a sheet of paper on the table. It was a sketch, crude, drawn in pencil but unmistakable, a schoolhouse with a flag on top, children smiling at the doorway, and abroad the read in large shaky letters, Amma School. See, Amma, Arjun said, his eyes shining. I know you will build again, bigger this time, stronger, and I will help. Raga stared at the scratch and her throat tightening. Do you really believe I can, Kana? Arjun nodded firmly. I don't just believe, I know. In that moment, Raga felt something shift inside her. The ashes settling, the ember catching light again. She began small once more, using the last of her compensation money. She rented a tiny two-room house at the edge of the city, far from the reach of Rajiv and his goons. Here, with chalk and borrowed benches, she started again. At first, only a half handful of students came. Parents were hesitant, wary of past rumors, but Raga worked tirelessly. She visited homes, personally spoke to mothers, and promised them that where what no other school would, care, dignity, and honesty. Slowly trust returned. One child became five, five became 15, the rooms filled with laughter, recitations, and scratch of pencils. But Raga knew this time she could not remain fragile. She could not rely solely on goodwill. She needed structure, legality, and strength. She spent long nights studying government guidelines, writing applications, and networking with honest officers who believed in her education. She attended workshops, met other women educators, and learned the mechanics of running an institution. She told herself, if they break me again, it will not be because I was unprepared. The time my roots will be deep. One evening, after dismissing her new batch of students, she stood outside watching the sunset paint the sky orange in color and deep red. The sound of children's laughter still echoed in her ears. Arjun joined her, holding her hand. Amma doesn't it feel like we are being born again? She smiled, her heart swelling with a strange peace. Yes, Kana, you are right. That's exactly what it is, a second birth. And this time, no storm will steal it from us. She lifted her eyes to the horizon. The flame had returned, not just a flicker now, but the steady glow of a rising sun. This was not just survival anymore, it was identity. End of chapter 20. Chapter 21, Wings of Fire. The second school was not just a building, it was a promise Anita made to herself, to her son, and to every child whose eyes held the hunger for knowledge. The small two-room rental could not contain the growing tide of students. Within a year, the benches overflowed. Children sat on mats, and parents queued outside pleading for admission. Raga felt both joy and fear, joy at the trust she had earned, fear at the responsibility that came with it. One evening, she sat with her diary, tallying the accounts. The numbers were tight, every rupee stretched, rent, books, salaries. For two young teachers she had hired, nothing was easy, yet instead of despair, she felt determination rising like fire in her chest. I will not crumble again, she wrote. This flame must spread. Her efforts caught the attention of women in the neighborhood, widows, single mothers, wives of drunkards who came hesitantly asking if she could employ them. Raga welcomed them, training some as assistants, others as teachers. Ma'am, we don't know much, one woman confessed, but we can learn. Raga smiled. Knowledge is not born in books alone, it is born in efforts. If you are willing, you are already off the way. Don't bother. Slowly, her staff grew not polished professionals but women of grit and hunger. Together, they built a sanctuary, a place where children and mothers alike found purpose. But with growth came fresh challenges. Rival schools whispered rumors. She has no recognition. She is unstable. She was thrown out before. Inspectors arrived unannounced, tripping to trip her up. Bribes were demanded, threats returned, this time more subtle but no less sharp. Raga faced them all. Her eyes steady, her voice calm. For every hurdle and obstacle, she had a document to reply in sheer resolve. Her past had made her cautious, like once beaten, twice shy. She made herself strong, better, and confident, but it had also made her fierce and fearless. The turning point came when she was invited to speak to a local educational conference. Nervous but resolute, Raga stood before an audience of principals, educators, academicians, and officials. She spoke only with polish but with the truth. She spoke not with polished words, unfiltered truth. Education is not about buildings or certificates or power, it is about trust. If a child trusts you, if a parent trusts you, you carry the weight of their future. That trust is sacred. It cannot be bought and it must never be betrayed. Her words struck a chord. The hall erupted in applause. For the first time, Raga felt the wings of recognition lift her. She was no longer just surviving, she was soaring. Back home, Arjun hugged her tightly. Amma, you flew today. I saw it in your eyes. She laughed softly, her tired face glowing. Yes, Kanan, not just me. We flew. And my success is your success. You are my inspiration. You are my pillar of support. You are everything to me. You are my God. You are my Father. You are my guiding star. And we will keep flying, Munna. The ashes of yesterday had given birth to wings of fire. Raga was not the broken woman of old. She was becoming something more unyielding, unafraid, unstoppable. End of chapter 21. Now we are in chapter 22, Enemies in the Shadow. Success, Raga discovered, was a double edged sword. On one side, it gave her wings, on the other, it sharpened the knives of envy. By the third year of her second school, Raga had nearly 100 children under her care. The courtyard that once held only mats now rang with morning assemblies, patriotic songs, and laughter. Parents proudly pointed to the little institution and said, that is where real learning happens. But with recognition came scrutiny. The rival schools, once amused at her struggles, now watched her with unease. Their enrollment numbers dipped as families flocked to Anita's classes. Jealous whispers grew louder. She is too ambitious. She doesn't know her place. A woman alone should not rise so high. And this was spoken by women. And jealousy rarely stayed just words. Anonymous letters began arriving at her gate. She carried crude insults. Others threatened, close down before it is too late. One evening, Raga found a dead pigeon thrown at the entrance of a school, a silent warning. She shuddered but said nothing to the children. Instead, she swept it away before they arrived, whispering to herself, they will not see me afraid. The most insidious attack. however, came through the very system she was trying to build within. The local official who had the power to grant a recognition certificate began to delay her file deliberately. There are irregularities, he said smoothly, leaning back in his chair when she visited. What irregularities? Raga demanded. Every document is in order. The man's smile never reached his eyes. Rules are flexible, madam, but cooperation is quite important. Raga understood his meaning at once. Her stomach churned, knotted with disgust. She stood, her voice sharp. If you expect me to bow, I never will. If you expect me to bend, I never shall. Keep your certificate. I will find another way. She walked out before he could reply. Her knees trembled, but her spirit remained unbroken. At home, she confided in Arjun. Why are they after you? Amma asked, frowning, because Kannauр people fear what they cannot control, and I cannot be controlled by anyone. But they are dangerous. She cupped his face gently. So is fire, my child, but fire also gives light. We must keep burning, even if shadows gather. That night, Raga lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She knew the storm was returning, different phases, the same darkness, but this time she was not the fragile woman who once collapsed under its weight. She whispered to herself, let them come. I have survived worse. I will survive this too. In the silence, the shadows thickened, but within her the flame glowed steadily, daring them to strike. End of chapter 22. Chapter 23. The Web of Betrayal. Raga had long learned to guard herself against these enemies in the open, but she had not yet hardened herself to treachery from within. Her school's growth meant she could no longer manage everything alone. She relied on a small circle of teachers and assistants, most of them women like her, hungry for work, grateful for opportunity. Among them was Lata, a quiet, efficient teacher in her 30s. Lata seemed dependable, arriving early, staying late, handling accounts. When Raga was overwhelmed, you are my right hand, Raga often told her. Lata would bow her head, humbly replying, without you, madam, I would be nothing. Raga trusted her, perhaps too much. Whispers began again, rumors spreading in the neighborhood, false complaints filed anonymously with authorities. Raga dismissed them at first, but then came something she could not ignore. One morning, an officer arrived with a copy of her school's rent agreement claiming it had technical defects. Raga was puzzled. How could he have obtained such a private document? Later, she found photocopies of her bank slips, her correspondence, even private notes she had kept in her office drawer, surfacing mysteriously outside. Someone was leaking from within. Their realization cut deep. Betrayal was always colder than enmity. One evening, she stayed back after classes, pretending to leave quietly. She returned and watched through a half open door as Lata riffled through her desk as Lata rifled through her desk, snapping photos of files with her own phone. Lata, Raga voice was sharp, trembling with rage. The woman froze, then stammered, Madam, I was just what? Raga advanced slowly, selling me piece by piece, feeding my enemies with my blood. Tears welled in Lata's eyes, but a silence was another answer enough. Raga's chest constricted, her trust shattering like glass. The betrayal had been bought. She soon learned how Lata's husband, a gambler, had fallen into debt. Rajiv's men had found a weakness, offering money in exchange for information. Raga dismissed Lata the next day, but the damage was done. Enemies now knew her financial struggles, her legal vulnerabilities, her every step and next move. That night, Raga sat on her bed, her diary open before her, but she could not write words failed. Arjun, now older, watched her silently. Then he said softly, Amma, when fire burns bright, it attracts moths. Some will circle, some will dive into it, some will try to smother it. But you are the fire, don't forget that. Raga's eyes filled, but she nodded. You are right, Kana. Betrayal cannot put me out. It can only teach me to guard my flame better. She closed her diary with trembling hands. The pain of betrayal lingered, but beneath it smoldered something harder, sharper, resolve, forged in fire. End of chapter 23. Chapter 24. The Trial by Fire. When the blow came, it did not come as fists or stones. It came wrapped in stamped paper, signed by authority, and carried by a court messenger. Raga opened the envelope with trembling hands. It was a legal notice accusing her of fraud, illegal operation of an educational institution, and misuse of funds. Her vision blurred. Fraud? Misuse? She had lived frugally, given every rupee back to the school, but truth, she realized bitterly, mattered little when lies carry the weight of official seals. The weeks that followed were a blur of courtrooms, affidavits, and endless humiliations. Raga walked into the courtroom for the first hearing, her sari starched, but her heart heavy. The opposing lawyer hired by her rival smirked as he spoke. This woman pretends to be a savior of children. In truth, she is a fraud, pocketing fees under the guise of education. Whispers rippled through the gallery. Raga felt each one like a slap. When her turn came, she stood with shaking hands but steady voice. I have nothing but honesty to offer. My accounts are open, my work is visible in the faces of the children who study under me. If that is fraud, then let the court declare every mother a criminal. But the judge